everyone. Good afternoon. We are back with another Breaking In. Super excited to be here today. Today is super special because we are partnered with the Hive Mind Unified. These two lovely ladies that you see on the screen here, I am going to introduce them. We have Karima B. She is the founder of the Hive Mind Unified, and she is also a writer, and she really loves Final Draft. So we're super excited to have her here, as well as Sherilyn. She is a producer and the head of content at the Hive Mind Unified. And we see the numbers rolling in. Say hello in the chat. We're super excited to have you all here. My name is Heather Daughtry. I am with Final Draft, and we are super happy to have you. So thank you. I see I love the shout outs. I love the city shout outs going on in there. We have London, the UK. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in a bit, just letting you all roll in. Connecticut, New York, Inglewood, Canada. This is great. London, Culver City, Texas, Germany. See, this is wonderful. This is a plus of being able to have these virtual events, because we have people from all over the world who are able to join us and get these valuable resources. So I'm going to let Karima and Sherilyn take it over, because I can do this all day, the roll call. But yes, enjoy and have a wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us from all over. We love roll calls, by the way. We can do this all day too, but we know we got a lot to get through today on Breaking Into the Writer's Room. But first, again, let me tell you, my name is Karima B, and this is the Hive Mind Unified. It's a global exchange of information to advance the careers of the melanated community in entertainment. Last year, this time, I posted the first picture on Instagram from the Hive Mind Unified's page. And so to be here now doing this amazing panel and having a whole summit. This is day one of our 3-day summit. It's called the Unseen Insight Summit. Right after this, we even have a panel with the Director of Development at Macro, and then following that one under the Art of the Pitch, which all can be found at the hivemindunified.org. But again, a year ago today, it's all started. So we're super grateful to be able to have this panel and welcome our guest today, which Sherilyn will do now.
Thank you again to everyone for joining us. We have a lot to talk about, so let me just go ahead and dive in and introduce our speakers for today. We'll start with Sharday. Sharday Sellers is a screenwriter and producer based in Burbank, California. Originally from Michigan's capital, Lansing, Sharday has been working in the entertainment industry since 2009. In 2017, Sharday was a finalist for TV One's screenwriting competition for her teleplay, The Replacement. This achievement motivated the network to hire her as a writer for her upcoming movie of the week event, Deadly Dispatch, which premiered on the platform in the summer of 2019. Through that production process, Sharday met casting director Leah Daniels Butlers, who was in the midst of staffing her production company, 1195. Sharday then rose to the role of Vice President of Content Acquisitions and Development, and spent the next year learning the ecosystem of film and television development from pitching to production. Using that experience and bound at home due to COVID, Sharday made a return to her first love, screenwriting, utilizing her free time to write new content. Currently, Sharday wrapped her first television staffing position for the upcoming Facebook Watch series, Contacts. She enjoys cooking, baking, and catching up on programs such as The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Handmaid's Tale. Our next speaker is Brandon. Brandon K. Hines is originally from High Point, North Carolina, home to the biggest chest of drawers and John Coltrane. After veering off the medical school path, Brandon moved to New York City to pursue a career in film and television, climbing his way up the production ladder, working on projects such as 30 Rock, Royal Pains, and Sex and the City 2, and many more. After finding his footing, Brandon discovered his love for TV writing and transitioned to working as a script coordinator and writer's assistant, gathering over a decade of writer's room experience. In 2019, Brandon was given his first writing job on the ABC International French M6 series Reef Break. Since he has written for the MTV variety series Yo! MTV Raps Asia, is currently writing for season 2 of Harlem, for Amazon Studios and continues to develop queer and diverse stories across various platforms. Help us welcome Brandon.
Hey guys.
Okay, Brandon, Sade, thank you so much for joining our conversation today. So look, for someone at the very beginning of their journey, let's start at step one. How do you define what is the writer's room? What happens there? And this is a bit of, pre-COVID. Obviously, it'll look a little bit different now. But what is it comprised of? And on every show, do you have to always be in the same space, the same room?
I'm gonna let Brandon answer that foundational question first, and I'll pitch off of it, because the best thing about this Zoom today is that we both have very completely different experiences. But I think his is more of the quote unquote normal or original ecosystem, and I can talk about how it branched off because of COVID.
Absolutely. So I originally came up in the kind of like the procedural drama world, network drama world. And those rooms look different from, other rooms. Like that room, there was no central room. Everyone had their own offices. They had their own whiteboards, and the showrunner would just go around and break story with each writer. And also the writers would talk amongst themselves, visit each other in each other's offices, etc. But I've also had the more traditional room, where it's more of a central room. Everyone comes, they break a whole episode together, or they break an episode and then they go off and write, individual writers go off and write the episode and then come back. And I've also had, obviously with the Zoom, I've had 2 jobs recently now with the Zoom room where I've never met any of the writers in person. The board is digital, the board meaning how we break story on it, et cetera, is all through Writers Room Pro. So like I've had the kind of the whole, and I've gone from drama to sitcoms to single cam comedies, so I've kind of, it all depends. It all depends also on the showrunner. Because they set the tone for what it is they want, how they want to run the room. So it could be there is no room, there is no central room, and everyone has their own offices. Or it could be that everyone is breaking every single script together and no one's going off individually to write a script. So it all depends on the showrunner.
And then for me, before I got hired on Context, I did work for Leah Daniels Butler, who's a casting director for Empire and Star. And I got to visit her casting offices a lot, where actually the same floor were the writer's room. And they had a very generic original writer's room as well. It's a circle of rooms. Everyone had their own offices. They would meet to break story and then go off to do their individual thing. But on Contacts for Facebook Watch, it was during COVID. So we never met in person. And not until I actually went to visit set to do an interview, I actually got to meet one of the writers in person, but not everyone. We actually have a Zoom happy hour for the wrapping of our show today at 6 p.m. So we're still not meeting in person. And the way it works for us, and it was my first room. I have obviously written Deadly Dispatch and obviously have had feature scripts option, but I've never written for television in a formal professional setting like a writer's room until this year because of COVID. And honestly, I think it's because we were remote that I even got the opportunity. One of our writers was in New Jersey at the time. The other one was traveling while we were in the room. So she was visiting family and then coming to our sessions. We met on Mondays and Wednesdays around noon to 2 p.m. just to break story and to re-break story. And then we were each given an episode, which rarely happens. Usually your first job as a staff writer, you're just kind of there. But there was only 6 of us in this room. It's very, very small because Contacts is a short form series for Facebook Watch. So it's not even a full 60 or 30-minute episodic. So they each gave us an episode. And then after we met, I'd go work on my episode, upload it to a Google Drive. And when we'd come back on Wednesday and we'd talk about it and break it down and then do the same thing again. So my experience is probably will never happen again this way. I think it was a happenstance. But I really had a positive time doing it. And I hope we actually continue the virtual thing. I know that's not popular, but I enjoyed working from home safely.
I agree too. Add the safety part.
Right, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Safety is important. Safety is important. And Sade, you alluded to this earlier. Of course, Brandon and yourself, you had separate entryways and approaches to getting into the writer's room. I'll start with you, Brandon, if you can. How did you get in there? And then if you have any tidbits of today, how does someone get close to getting their start in the writer's room?
So, I initially came up in the production office. For those who don't know, the production office is kind of like the main hub of a production. All the information, equipment ordering, everything, nothing would run without the production office. So I came up, I got my start as an office PA. work my way up from there. But I was given a good piece of advice by a production coordinator. She was like, you have to be ready to tell people what it is that you want to do. Even if you don't specifically know, like for me, I didn't want to be a writer. To be honest, writing what has been the bane of my existence since since elementary school, you know what I mean? So to be here is surprising to me, but I love creating and I'm a daydreamer, you know what I mean? So like it goes hand in hand. Like if I want to build worlds, then I have to write them. So like I use that piece of advice, to basically whenever someone asks me, I don't always bring it up. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. My job comes first. But whenever a showrunner or a producer stops and say, hey, what it is that you want to do? I told them I want to be a showrunner's assistant. That was my transformation from, working in a production office to working in the writer's room, because it saddles both worlds. I was like, I want to work around the EPs. I want to get to know the creative world. I have production experience, which would be useful. Like, how do I get there? And just by saying that, either via email when I send my resume out as a blast, or just in conversation, people remember that, right? They remember that and was like, oh, Brandon said that he was interested in working in the writer's room. There's a showrunner's assistant job coming up. Let me put my resume in for him, And one also little small tip is keywords, right? You want to give people keywords to remember you by, you know what I mean? Like if you're having a conversation, like tell them like what you're a fan of, give them some direction, some guidance on where to send you, to help you grow. And I can say that was the big transformation for my career. Like I really wanted to work on the creative side. I didn't know that I wanted to write yet, but I really, honed in on this is the direction. I told people, and people listened, and it really looked out for me.
And just to pick, because everything Brandon said is absolutely right. I don't think just because the traditional writer's room has changed, to fit virtually, the approach to get there hasn't changed. Meaning, at the end of the day, you still have to ask for what you want and have to be prepared to receive what you want. So someone in the chat was like, well, if the traditional landscape has changed, how do writers get there? Brandon went a more traditional route through the production offices. That didn't happen for me. That it wasn't an option for me, not because of money or anything. It's just because that's just how my life went, right? Like all of us have different paths. So my path led to a competition that got me my first project, that got me a job at Leah's company, that ended up getting me experience to meet other people. But at the end of the day, the one thing Brandon and I have in common is that we knew what we wanted, or at least we asked for what we thought we wanted at the time, and it led to other things. So I think the best approach for you is, number one, know exactly what you want to do. I knew I wanted to write for TV and for films, but I knew immediately when I left the production company because of COVID that I wanted to go into television writing. So what did I do? I wrote pilots. I had my work to back me up. For full transparency with context, Hollywood Here actually posted, Hollywood Here is this a system read by Jesse Evans. He started it during last year's Black Lives Matter to get more people to read Black writers. And he's been doing an amazing job. He's been getting people opportunities to work with mentorship. And because I was on that email list, I got an email that said, hey, a Facebook Watch show is looking for a writer, submit your samples. I submitted my samples, but that's not what got me the job. One of my friends who I met on Twitter, her name is Jamie Primick. She is the producer for Breaking In. We had a Twitter relationship for 3 or 4 years, never met this woman except for once. She came to LA 2 years ago. We only had dinner once. But she reached out to me because she liked me. And she said, my friend is producing a show for Facebook Watch, and it was the same opportunity. I would like to essentially walk you in there, but I need a sample of your work. So I submitted a sample of my work there. I got the job because of Jamie's side, not because of Hollywood Here side, but at the same time, if I did not have that sample to give to both of them, I would have gotten 0 jobs. So at the end of the day, it's meeting people, telling them exactly what you want. Jamie knew I wanted to write in TV. I've been very vocal about that. I didn't ask her to place me in a TV show. She just heard an opportunity and she placed me in there. And then having the work to back it up. So when people do say, hey, here's an opportunity, it's not like, oh, I need 2 weeks, I'm not done. No, I had my stuff done. I sent it to her in 10 minutes. So that's how I got my first job.
And I just want to add to that, my Hollywood Here experience was also great. I had a meeting with Sony executives in Paramount, and it gave opportunity to people who even work outside the business to meet with prominent executives. Like that's completely unheard of. I was completely floored by Jesse's Initiative by
Yeah.
Hollywood Here. I follow them on Twitter. Everyone should as well. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they did a really great job. And I'm having a lunch with one of the execs I met like next week. So you have to put yourself out there, but you have to be prepared as well, because they also asked for a sample of my work. So if I didn't have it to back up, there's no way I'd be having lunch or getting interviews at all.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So can we walk through some of the titles and this ladder, the climb that is in the writer's room? Where is someone starting, and the steps between there and showrunner and leading the room? What are some of those titles and roles? How do they differ in any way?
Brandon should go, because I get the titles confused.
I was like, I mean, a script coordinator knows them so well because we had to pay them. we process all their paperwork, right? So it starts off with, staff writer. Staff writer, I think is kind of looked at as more of a writer in training. Therefore, they don't get paid for their actual scripts, but they get credit for their scripts, right? Then you have story editor and executive story editor. So a story editor, executive story editor, staff writer, all considered quote unquote baby writers or new writers. And then you go into middle writers, or mid-level writers, which are consulting producer, co-producer, producer. And actually the range, I think, is co-producer, producer, and then you have consulting and supervising, which kind of are interchangeable. And that's kind of like your mid-level writer. And then your high-level writers are your co-EPs and your EPs. EPs are usually your showrunner or creator, or some other. Sometimes people don't even know how people become EPs. Those names are just attached to a project because they can do good business. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much the rankings. It's like lower level writers, mid level writers, and upper level writers. Usually, if you're say a lower level writer, sometimes you get partnered with an upper level writer on the episode to write. In my case, my first script was I got my own script, and got to like really test myself with that process. But yeah, so it's like so like I said, lower level writers are looked at more like a training kind of they're partnered to produce the episode sometimes in network TV with upper level writers as well. So they get carried throughout. So prep is like on a show. It's like there are production meetings that you have to carry a script through. There are tone meetings. There are post and prop meetings. So it's like all those meetings when you're getting ready to produce an episode. Usually a lower level writer is partnered with the upper level writer to produce that episode in network television.
And I just wanted to chime in to say, for full transparency as well, so you can see how different Brandon and I are. I am not WGA. It just so happened all of the movies and TV shows I worked on are non-union. Facebook Watch is non-union, which hopefully they'll change one day. And TV One, the network who produced Deadly Dispatch, they're non-union because they're in the right to work state, Atlanta. And Lord knows I tried to get them to become union and it didn't work. So I wanted to mention that because I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I'm not in the, how do I get in the union in this? But currently I'm a working writer and I'm not in the union, and I'm still writing for television and movies at the same time. I don't want it to be that way forever, but it is possible to go a little bit without being union.
Sade, thanks for that, because I was going to ask in that hierarchy, if you had any thoughts on what's the hardest, is it from coordinator to staff writer? Like what's that one hardest jump? And then maybe afterwards you're free flowing there. But, Sade, you kind of also just mentioned that there are other options so that you can remain working.
Honestly, I never got the route of script coordinator or assistants because they're so coveted. So I know a lot of people would say staff writer, and I think that's true as well. But what I'm finding is that those assistant positions and those showrunner assistant or coordinators, those are hot and tough positions usually. And Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, because a lot of them are nepotism. A lot of them go to friends of family of so-and-so. And then a lot of them are straight out of film school. Like if you're coming right out of American film school, then they're looking at that. So I think those are really hard. And on that side too, I was offered, last year doing a lot of generals, I was offered some of those coveted assistant and coordinator positions. And I turned them down because I had produced work and I had an extensive resume outside of just writing. I produced like both of you young women do. So for me, I made that decision to say, I'm at a point in my career where I'm not going to assist or coordinate because I know I can do a staff position. I'm actually glad that I did that because I never would have gotten contacts, right? If I had taken another position, I probably wouldn't have gotten that job. But I do think they're very, very coveted. It's not to say that it's not going to happen for you, but just know that when you do get an interview for those positions, like you got to nail it because they are so hard to get. And the last point I'll make is for people of color across the board, it's not hard to get the position. It's hard to ascend above the position. I know a lot of my friends of color, Asian, Black, Latino, who've been staff writers for 3-4 years, and they can't get to that next producer level and that next producer level. And I think it's unfortunate that we can't do that when I see, no offense, a lot of non-people of color just shoot right up to EP or even showrunner without even like doing the recourse. But then, you know, I'm sure Brandon can attest, there are WGA writers right now who have staffing experience who are not getting interviews because there's all these opportunities, which are great for people like who are watching this panel now. All the opportunities mostly geared towards new people who have no experience, but there are writers in the WGA, especially writers of color, who have experience and who's just been sitting there for years because they are not able to ascend, right? Right.
And I was like, can I add to that too? Because I'm
That's
one of
up,
those
Brandon.
people. I was like, she teed
Let
me
him
up
know,
right there.
Brandon.
You know what I'm saying? Let them know. I don't want to discourage anyone who's listening. Obviously, if you want to get into this business, know that, there might be struggle, and there might not, to be honest, but I think for people of color, there is a little bit of struggle. We tend to have to work 10 times as long in the same positions before we move up. Not 10 times, 2 times as long. 10 times is too much. But almost double as long to make it to the same place. For me, I am a WGA writer, but I still have to work as a script coordinator and writing assistant to pay my bills, you know what I mean? And then, on occasion, after a show and prove to a showrunner that I have these skills, sometimes I get a script, which I've gotten 2 scripts on Reef Break, which is my first one, and on Harlem for Amazon, which should be coming soon. But yeah, it is tough. I don't want anybody to get discouraged. The environment is changing right now drastically, just based off of what happened with the whole George Floyd, the pandemic. Like, there's rapid change happening. And I can say that because I've been leading a lot of it and I've been seeing it with my own eyes. So don't get discouraged. Know that there is a community that's looking out for you, and know that things are changing like pretty quickly. If I have anything to do with it, you know what I mean? So we're working hard. Even like Hive Mind Unified, things like this are popping up, these great resources. Like, the way you move up in this business is community. It's about who you know. People say it's about who you know. That's absolutely the truth. It's like your friends, even if you are not quite good at your job, which we know some people in this business who are not quite good at their job, but they're friends. They have connections who will keep pulling them up, and they'll keep pulling you up. So literally focus on, if you're new and you're looking to break into this industry, focus on building that community. Follow your favorite writers on Twitter, follow Hollywood Here, follow the Hive Mind Unified, follow these resources, and just keep building that community, because we are here looking for you, trust me.
Thank you for that, Brandon. And for those with questions, we'll try to get to as many as we can towards the end, but please put them in the Q&A box. But I kind of want to stay a little bit right there, Brandon, and have you speak to, how did you stand out to get promoted in the room? Like, what do you think that there was something that you did? And Sade, if you can speak to, if there's an assistant in your room, what are they doing that is catching your eye that might be helpful to people who are in that support role now to know to do in the future?
So for me, one thing I really learned was to be good at my job. You know what I mean? Like, my job comes number one. I did have to change I'm going to say that I'm still working out this process. I'm still working out, how to stand out, because sometimes it all depends on the showrunner. But for me, it's like I got to a point in my career where I just finally started asking for things. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to take this job, before I even take this job, I need to know that you guys will bump me or promote me. You know what I mean? If that's not the case, then unfortunately, this is not the job for me. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to put your foot down. But number one, though, is recognize that your job comes first. Show them that you can do the work. And then when they have, like I said, when they have questions for you, like what it is that you want to do, have an answer, but also have work to back it up. You know what I mean? Like, I've been writing, as soon as I entered the writer's room, I was writing my own pilots. You know what I mean? I was getting notes from other writers. I was really trying to learn and engage. I think those are the key, because people want to help you. People want to see you grow. I feel like there's not enough minorities or people of color in this business to bring us up, because a lot of this is about, a showrunner seeing you and recognizing like, oh, I see myself in this young person, or I see myself in this new writer. Let me help them up. You know what I mean? There's just not enough people of color in this business to do that, right? But that's changing. So if, like, when I say, it's to stand out, have your work ready and back up whatever it is you're saying, right? But also, like, realize you're there for a job, you know what I mean? Like, and do that job well. And do, like, I always, as another tip too, is like at the beginning, that people remember the beginning of a job and the end of the job. Even if you mess up in the middle of a job, just make sure you do a good job, the beginning and then the very end, and make sure you remember your name. And I think that's kind of the key, those are the keys, at least that I've been using and that I've been sussing out as I go along.
And what Brandon's saying is absolute truth and gold, because I always say I'm not the best writer, right, in the world. I know I'm talented at what I do. I'm known as the stakes girl. Like, I can elevate any script. If you give it to me, I already know how to make it adrenaline worthy or action worthy or stakes, because I write typically horror and thrillers. So that's kind of my bread and butter. But I will say the one thing no one's ever going to beat me at is working and personality. Like, I know how to turn it on when I have to turn it on, and I will charm you. And I think 99% of my success in my career has been because people actually invested in me because they liked me. And it's not because of my writing. Because again, I do think I am a good writer, but I don't think I'm a Scorsese. I don't think I'm Spielberg. I don't think I'm anywhere near that level, but people want to invest in people they like and in good people. So I always say it's not me being fake, I'm being myself, and people happen to like that. And they're betting on that more so than, because skill, you can learn how to write, you can learn trade, but you can't learn how to be a good human being and a good person. That's either innate, either you have that or you don't. And then for our writer's room, we had a young woman named Sincere who was just fresh out of film school, and she was our script coordinator. So for virtual script coordinating, she took all of our notes down. So we met on Zoom like this, and we would just literally sit here and pitch ideas after we broke stories and pitch. And even though we recorded the Zooms, like, no one's really going to go back and rewatch that, right? No, we're not. She wrote every pitch down, from who said it, when they said it, when it was said, how it was said, what we thought about it. And then she put that in a Google Drive full of just her digital notes. And it was really helpful when I went to Paige to go, I know I pitched this idea, but I don't remember how I said I was going to work it out. Boom, there's the notes. She ended up getting an episode as well, right? Because it's just like, well, you're here and you're breaking story with us, so you might as well go ahead and take the episode. Now, that's because we had a showrunner who was so engaging and so open and so pleasant, and he was so patient to teach, because a lot of our staff writers for Facebook Watch were new. I think even though it was my first staffing gig, I technically had more experience than everyone in the room because of my production background history. But it didn't matter in that room because we're all like building a show from scratch. So it doesn't matter how much experience you have. We all have to kind of do the show together. So Sincere was great. And I really do hope we stick to virtual, because I do think script coordinators are needed in virtual because of the notes that she did and the care that she took in all of our scripts. I hope they don't eliminate that position in thinking that we're going to go back and rewatch the Zoom videos, because I definitely did not. And I probably still won't. Again, we had different experiences, but Brandon, at the end of the day, the same thing is investing in yourself and making those connections. We've mentioned Twitter so many times on here, because you'd be surprised how many people I've met on Twitter I've never met in my life, but who have put me in rooms or gotten me positions or jobs or interviews because they like who I am online. If they only knew how boring I am in person. But people want to invest in good people. And that's how you get those, I don't know if we can curse, those a-holes out of here, those abusers out of here, is you invest in good people. So when everyone's saying Hollywood's a cesspool, it's like, yeah, because you keep those bad people working. So therefore people are trying to change that by investing in people that they like working with, who are cool as well.
And I just want to add too, when she said Twitter is literally the place right now. Like, I have moved my career so far outside of the normal realms of a writer's room, just connecting with people on Twitter and events that Hollywood Here puts on, or the writers are putting on. Liz Alper with the hashtag Pay Up Hollywood movement. There's been so much, they just announced a script coordinator and writer's assistant training program on the West Coast. I work in the diversity committee on the WGA East, and we're doing the same initiative coming soon. So follow me on Twitter for more details if you're on the East Coast. But like, yes, Twitter is it, y'all. Follow your favorite writers, you know?
And but use it as a tool, right? Like if you guys go to my Twitter, you know, sometimes I engage when there's big stuff happening in the world, but most of the time I'm making jokes or I'm talking about my writing and I'm asking other questions to showrunners and producers. I use it as a tool. It is not my soapbox. It's not my place to take pictures of my spaghetti, but also sometimes I'll take a picture of wine. I can't help it. But it is, I treat it as this is just something in my toolkit to use if I need to reach out. And you'll be so surprised how many producers and showrunners just want praise. Like we're a very sensitive community over here, the artist community. If you just say, I really loved your film, you'll be surprised how many of them are like, thank you. Who are you? What are you about? What do you like to do? That's how I met my mentor, Jeff Howard, who wrote Oculus, House of The Haunting of Hill House, and many other horror films. I just complimented his movie 5 years ago and I haven't stopped complimenting him, and that's why he keeps talking to me.
Sade, can I actually, because you mentioned this in your response about being the high stakes girl, and curious how you like discovered that about yourself, and then how do you make that known to others? Like, you know, like I'm the action writer. Excuse every other writer in here. Back up. Let me do that. Like, how? What's that conversation?
The way I discovered it, actually, because everything stems back to childhood, whether you admit it or not. That's what you learn in therapy. Like every decision you make is about what you did in childhood. My mother, single mother, immigrant from Belize, she would always tell me, my sister, before we left the house, think about, before you make a decision, think about what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like putting anxiety on it. So it was her way of saying, don't do bad things, because think about the worst outcome that could happen if we decided to skip school or smoke or whatever. It wasn't until later that I learned in my screenwriting, when I started writing horror and thriller, I would always look at a scene and go, what is the worst thing I could do for this scene? Like for this character right now, like what is the absolute horrible thing that I could do to them? And then maybe I'll pull it back a little bit, but I'm always going to go there. So that's how I discovered it. And the way I've let other people know is, like Brandon was mentioning earlier, I let them know from the jump, in my interviews, but also when I got to the room, like, hey, in my intros, hey, I'm Sade. I'm the stakes girl. Like if you're ever looking to elevate your scene or your script or your character's stakes, let me do it, because I'll find a way to do it. And I promise you it'll be interesting. And then I just had to live up to that promise. And I think I did, because you know, I got to, you know, they hired me.
Can I just add real quick? Like you gave them keywords.
I gave
That's
them
important.
Yeah, exactly.
You gave them keywords to remember who you were. Yeah.
Yeah, because the one thing I heard about staffing a writer's room that always stuck with me is from Leah. She's like, you know, staffing in a writer's room is like casting. You're like casting the room with writers and who's going to bring different perspectives in the room. And I always said, I may have had a very mundane childhood. I'm you know, from Michigan. I've had a pretty good childhood. I can't really complain. I don't really have a lot of quote unquote life experience that's going to kind of blanket a show, but what I can do is give you stakes, because my mother instilled anxiety in me since I was young. So I'm always looking for like the worst outcome. So yeah, keywords I think are important. And that's what makes me stand out, because I am pretty like a mediocre mid-bred writer in my own sense, because I come from the Midwest and there's really nothing super special about me, right? So
girl, don't put that out there. Don't put that out there. We all know. I've never been out there.
No, I mean, you see some people are like, they're like, I went to Vietnam and I traveled here and I lived 3 lives before I got here. And I'm like, I'm from Michigan and, you know, we like toast. But what I can do well is stakes. I can elevate any story you give me. I'm going to give you like the worst thing in the world. So
shout out to mom.
Yeah, mom.
Right.
Thanks for all that anxiety in therapy.
I love what Michael Davis just said. Claim your glory. That's right. So Midwest Michigan, it's all relevant.
Yeah.
I want to go back just a little bit, because what I loved about this conversation so far is that you talked a lot about the soft skills, kind of necessary to succeeding in the writer's room. But I also, if we can, want to go through a bit more like hard skills, like what kind of are you expected to know versus not in the writer's room as a writer's PA, or does a writer's PA even get to go in the writer's room as a writer's assistant, as a script coordinator, and things like that? Because a lot of times people don't actually know what they do, right, before actually writing an episode.
I mean, I can talk a little bit about the support staff and the positions within a support staff office. I hate the term support staff. It's just like, but yeah, so I mean, usually, you know, if we actually had an office, which we don't now, we're all Zoom, but if we had an office, Typically, you'll probably have a writer's PA. If I'm hiring a writer's PA, I usually like to say, this is your office. You're running this office. That means lunch needs to be on time. You know what I mean? You need to tell, like, I was like, I want them to feel pride in the fact that they're running this writer's room office, you know what I mean? And it's a direct product of their actions. So usually, like I said, the writer's PA is responsible for getting lunch, going on runs. Every now and again, they might be able to take over for a writer's assistant if there's like, say there's a big writer's room and it needs to split into 3 rooms, someone needs to go back and re-break, the act on this one, blah, blah, blah. Then a writer's PA might be able to go in and act as a writer's assistant. That happens, fairly often throughout the season. So it's a great way to get experience. Then the next level up is usually writer's assistant. That's the person in a very traditional writer's room where there's a room and the person is just, and all the writers are there. The writer's assistant is the person on the computer with probably a screen in the back, taking notes, jotting everything down, etc. For me personally, it's a job that I dislike, because I have tunnel vision and I struggle with listening and then typing at the same time, because then I'll be typing sometimes when I'm thinking, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I have to go back. But then above that, you have script coordinator. That person is the gatekeeper to the entire script. They also are the person who processes all the writer's paperwork. They're that connection between production, all of production for the most part, and the writer's room. And they're like the gatekeeper and the coordinator between those 2 worlds. And then, then you might have a researcher or a clearance person as well, and that's pretty much about it as far as, and showrunner's assistant, sorry. Usually you have a showrunner's assistant as well. That person is responsible for keeping the showrunner's calendar. They also, when I was a showrunner's assistant, I had a rare situation where the showrunner put me in charge of the support staff. So I had to hire the support staff. I think for a writer's assistant, I had to partner with a co-AP to pick that person, but we did the interviews together, et cetera. That's a very rare, unique situation. That showrunner was just like, I'm not the best with people, so you lead this, you know what I mean? And, I'm just a natural leader, so I did it, But that person is a gatekeeper to the showrunner. Crew members will come to you to complain about things in hope that you will bring it to the showrunner and get things fixed. You sort of have an extension of the showrunner's power, but just know if you get this job, don't abuse it. You know what I mean? People remember, that assistant who abused, their power or the showrunner's power. Right. And don't be that person. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a job. Why we got to do that? You know what I mean? So yeah, those are typically the roles within a support staff writer's room.
Yeah. And again, Brandon is saying he's giving you an overview of typically, it all depends on the room. It's very different for everyone. Yes. It depends on the showrunner, the production company, the studio. So I know a lot of people are asking, well, how do the writers' rooms work? We kind of highlighted that a little bit with, at least we know we're going to meet to break a story and then go our separate ways to write our episode and come back. That's generally how it works. But it is very hard for us to give you a concrete answer because my Facebook Watch show is different from Brandon's show. And the next show I go to is going to be different from the Facebook Watch show. And someone said, well, how do I learn? You jump in and you learn. That's the one thing about me that I think is a skill of mine. On my first day of the staff writing room, I may be a little quieter because I'm absorbing, because I'm listening and I'm learning. And I'm like, okay, what is okay to say here? What is not okay to say here? What does this word mean? I'm also not afraid to ask. If I don't know what a term means, I'm not going to sit there for the rest of the day and go, I don't know what that means. I'm going to say, I know this may sound green, but what does breaking in mean? What does it mean when we have to, what is the end of the third act look like for us? I don't understand how we got here. I ask questions. I don't think you should be afraid. And the one point also I want to make that Brandon mentioned a little earlier, there are 283 people in this room. So why we're telling you, yes, go network with all of the people on Twitter, the showrunners, producers, you should all be exchanging information with each other. Because there are times where I know I've gotten like that assistant position I told you last year that I turned down. I passed that to someone, a friend. I went outwards and I said, this is not a position for me, but I think it's a position for you and you should submit. And they actually got it. So while you're looking to connect, as Issa Rae with all the people above you, you should really be reaching out. And if there's 282 people in this room from all over the world, you need to make friends with them. That's 282 people that eventually will know someone who knows someone who knows someone who might get you your next job. So I hope you all are exchanging information.
You heard Sade. Drop your links in the chat. Drop your links in chat.
Follow each other.
And I want to be honest too. I'm a person
Yeah.
who hates like I'm a little bit of an introvert. You know what I mean? So as soon as someone tells me I need to go out and network, I'm like oh god. You know what I mean? Like I can't do this. But like find your path. Like I've learned that majority of people's success is because they're confident in who they are. You know what I mean? Like I'll tell people to live their best straight white male life. You know what I mean? Because like I've had a lot of friends, straight white males, who'll come in and say, I'm not doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And they're all writers now. You don't have to be disrespectful, you know what I mean? But they know their worth, right? So like know your worth, and if you're an introvert, know that there are a lot of introverts in this business, you know what I mean? But just work on the system that works best for you. Don't strain yourself, we're in a pandemic, etc. You know what I mean? But know that, maybe meet other introverts. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, try to connect.
I'm much better online than I am in person. When we used to do mixers in person, and actually that's how I met my manager. We had a Burbank young entrepreneur mixer over at the Burbank downtown hotel. I know I'm not a good person in person with people because I'm shy. I brought my friend Adrienne. Adrienne is a fashionista. Everyone automatically looks at her because she dresses to the nines. So she came with me because I know that's my girl and I know I'll feel comfortable around her. And a woman approached her to talk about her outfit. We talked for 2 hours. At the end of that conversation, that woman goes, well, I'm a lit manager. And I was like, oh, I'm a writer. She's like, well, why don't we meet on Monday? And that's how organically it happened. So if whoever said it earlier, like grab onto your golden goose or whatever it was, find your strengths. My strengths is not talking and mingling in people. So I bring my sister or a friend, but online, I'm pretty good at it because I'm like, you can't see me, you can't hear me. It's just my words, right? I'm a writer. So I can put my best foot forward there.
Can we also talk a bit more about, and we're already leaning into it, so I'm just having us go there a little bit more about kind of expectations when it comes to the writer's room. Even being an early staff writer, is it automatically you're, pitching a story arc or a storyline, or is that left to more senior writers, or how does that work? And I say this too, because Sharday, you've spoken about it, the idea of the collaborative writer's room versus you, Brandon, in a more traditional writer's room where it may not be as collaborative because they have in mind the deadlines. And I say that too, because for me as a writer right now in children's animation, it's like you might be able to pitch a premise or two. If not, they send you what you need to go write an outline for, and then you come back with them, and then they send it to you. And then what you write might not be what the output is, right? So can we talk a bit more about expectations?
Yeah. And I want to start that off with saying this. Brandon, I'm sure would agree. When you join a writer's room, it's a very personal space because, again, they're casting the room based on different experiences to infuse into the show. So because someone asked like, hey, I'm dyslexic, when do I bring that up? And I answered them back right away. Because we in our writer's room, the truth is most of the day is spent just talking about our life and experiences and stuff. And it may sound like you're just BSing, but it's actually like grabbing stories like, ooh, maybe we'll put this in the show. So a lot of context was about, hey, this is a moment I was scared. I was at a gas station and someone was following me. Like, we should add this for the female character of the show. So it's a very personal space. And if you're not that kind of person that's likes to open up, TV writing, especially drama TV writing, may not be the space for you because we're all just kind of exposing ourselves to each other emotionally and talking about our childhood traumas or our adulthood traumas. But when it came to the context writer's room, it was completely collaborative from top to bottom. So our producer is King Batch. He's this influencer, but he's also a very, very smart producer and content creator. And he's like, all I know is I want the show to open with me with a bag on my head in the desert. That's all he gave us. And then when the showrunner, we all sat down and we're like, okay, so if you got a bag on his head, how do we do this? And we all just kept pitching ideas. It really is kind of like a game of popcorn. We're like, what about this? No, that doesn't quite work. What about this? And the showrunner is the one at the end of the day that goes, I like that. Let's do that. Let's put that in there. And we had a very, very tight deadline. I think we had to write the whole series in a month because they wanted to start shooting the following month. So we used the Final Draft program, 11, which none of the writers in my room had except for me. And I reached out to Final Draft and they immediately sent them all Final Draft 11 copies for free. So thank you for that. But we jumped on with their collaboration feature after we all did our own episode. So we all wrote our first drafts, right? We all went to write our first drafts. And even some of us, like me, I got to write my own second draft. But when it was really getting down to the wire, what we did is we all came in and we did episode by episode together on the collaboration feature. And I would go, okay, we need more stakes to end this episode. So I'm going down here to raise the stakes. And someone who is better at dialogue would go, well, the dialogue at the top of the show is not really great. So I'm going to go up here and do this. And other people in between would say, well, I'm going to correct the grammar and whatever. So we was like 6 of us descending on one script at a time. So even though we have individual credited episodes, like technically episode 6 is written by me, the whole show is collaborative. So I may get all the praise for episode 6 and it would be unwarranted, or I may get all the crap for episode 6 and it would still be unwarranted, because at the end of the day, we each have our hand in every episode on that show.
And just to add to what she was saying, if you have dyslexia, number one, that could be a strength, right?
Mhm.
That's who you are. That's actually what the showrunner might be looking for as a part of the world that they're building. You know what I mean? So lean into that. You know what I mean? That's literally you. Like, I've learned from going from assistant to writer. Like, when you're assistant, you need to be seen and not heard. That's what's drilled into you. You need to be able to, do things in advance. Have eyes on the situation. But if people are, hearing you about, you're probably not doing your job right? But when you become a writer, all of a sudden it becomes, how do you pitch yourself? How do you sell yourself? That's completely different energy from what you are as a support staff member, right? So like when you're starting to sell yourself as a writer, dyslexia is one of those things you should definitely like. This is my lived experience, and those are the stories that I feel like showrunners love to hear. And also as far as like the experience in the room for staff writers too, you might work on the show as a staff writer where the showrunner will tell you, do not speak for the first season. Just sit here and learn. Don't take it personally. You know what I mean? I forgot the showrunner's name, so I'm not going to mention it. But there's a showrunner in New York who says, like, I do this because I want lower level writers to feel comfortable, to speak. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to absorb first. I want to take the pressure off first. You know what I mean? Like, don't speak for the first 6 weeks. You might get that. You know what I mean? No experience is the same in this business. Your experience with everyone in this business will be completely different from the person standing beside you. But know that that's okay, right? And you might hit some of these, these bad experiences, but just keep it pumping. Let's keep it going.
And then may I ask, with all this experience that the both of you have, is there anything looking back that you maybe wish you knew at the beginning of your journey, or anything that you would want to tell people now who are starting out or just on the cusp of finally like maybe getting closer to where they want to be in the writer's room?
Yeah, I have one for the perfectionists in the room. Release yourself, because it's never gonna, I'm the type of person, I've always been the girl who's gonna raise her hand first in class, right? That's just me. I'm Hermione, if you want to say that. And I always was very rigid with rules. I'm like, but we can't do that because the rules said this, and we must like stick to the rules, whether it's structure, whether it was anything I've ever learned. Even though I never went to film school, I'm self-taught, I was still like, well, the rules say we can't do this. You have to release yourself from that, and understand that what is best for the show is just best for the show. Whether it breaks the rules, whether it's not, in your personal opinion, the way you should have went, or the way you would have really liked to see the character go out. At the end of the day, the show trumps everything. So release yourself from the ideal perfectionism, or the ideal that your way is the best way, because it may be, but it also may not be. It is not your job to police the writer's room. I did have a small incident. We had a very positive room and it wasn't an incident, but I had a small moment where I was tempted to reach out to my showrunner because I was actually disappointed in some of the productivity from one of our writers, but I had to humble myself really quick to go, that is not my job. And my job is to contribute to this group and to be an asset to this group. And if the showrunner has anything to say to that writer, they will, because at the end of the day, it is not my room. And you don't need to overstep your bounds. You need to come in and do your job, like Brandon said, and be really good at what you do and focus on that. And you're not going to work with people who are as professional as you, maybe even as experienced as you, and who have the same work ethic as you, but you need to run your race. I always say, put your blinders on and run your race. But in the writer's room, open up your blinders a little bit to let in ideas. But when it comes to people and their personalities, don't focus on that. Focus on what's best for the show at the end of the day.
I love that. You sound like you have come and evolved.
I did.
That you've been there and learned that, and now you are giving back. I love it. Brandon, what about you?
I think, like, you know, going back to the idea of, you know, when the different energies from being an assistant to being a writer, for me, it was like, you know, I came up in, you know, a lot of rooms where I was the only person of color sometimes, you know what I mean? So my confidence took a lot of hit. You know, I was exhausted by having to code switch a lot. You know, what I've learned is, like, you know, my voice is necessary. I started to have confidence in my voice. I started to speak up for myself and knew my worth. Like I said, no one teaches you that transition of mentality between assistant and promoting yourself as a writer. You know what I mean? Completely different energies. So I wish, you know, earlier I would have had that power. Like my whole focus was just do a good job. They will see the hard work and they will promote me and give me that leg up, which, you know, I don't want to say it didn't happen. It didn't happen immediately. I definitely have some showrunners that are obviously looking out for me, but I have some that don't, you know what I mean, who just wanted me to stay as a script coordinator. And if I even said that I want to, you know, be promoted a step higher, I didn't get to come back for the next season. You know, I took that though on the chin because I know my value. You know what I mean? I just wish I would have got to that place just a little bit sooner in my career, but it's a learning process. So I don't fault myself for that. You know what I mean? And like I said, that's just changing for people of color in this business where you're not the only person now. I think CBS, what did CBS say? They're going to have 50% of their writers' rooms BIPOC by the next 3 years or so. I don't know the exact number. Within the next few years. Like, that's huge. You know what I mean? That's going to make sure that, you know, the situations where there's only one, you know, Black writer in the room, you know, doesn't exist anymore. That should never be a thing anymore.
Well, as we're talking about the writers' room and our showrunners, they're not just running the show, you know, they're not just editing scripts, and they also have the budget, a very big budget sometimes, millions of dollars we're talking about. They also have to do the crewing and overseeing casting. So I think everyone gets the idea that showrunners just create shows and they have this like great responsibility to make a story. And that's very true. That's the number one job. But outside of that, they're doing budget meetings, they're balancing budgets, making sure they're not over budget. And if they're under budget, where can they allocate that budget? It's a management job. And they're getting it from all ends. So I get why a lot of people have this fascination about becoming a showrunner. That is not on my list at all, because I've been a manager of restaurants and I don't want to do that again. I don't mind
taking a little time either, right? Just let that maybe 10 years down the road. You know what I mean? You gotta get 3 places
I'm good.
At the same time. No, I'm good.
I'm good. Those people go to, like, they get emails at 11 p.m. at night or 2 a.m. at night, and they're up at 4 a.m. the next day. And some of them have kids, and I'm good. I don't need to do that right now.
And I want to highlight there is a difference too between a showrunner and a creator. You know what I mean? Yes. Sometimes creators don't have to run their own show. You know what I mean? For me,
and that's where I'm like, I'll create this stuff, and I'm not coming every day. Like, I'm not doing it.
While I'm sure Lynn goes to the audience for their questions, do the both of you mind dropping any favorite books, links, or anything that y'all love for the attendees?
Yes, I have my little list. If Brandon wants to go first, I'll pull it up. There we go.
I don't really have a list per se, but I would say, like we already mentioned a few, watch out for Hollywood here on Twitter. Like I said, Liz Alper with hashtag #PayUpHollywood is a source that I follow all the time. She and some other writers are, on the West Coast. I've started a script coordinator and writer's assistant training program. We are doing that here on the East Coast as well. That's soon to come. So I would say look out for those things. You can follow me on Twitter at Thumpio for more updates. Are we also providing maybe a list of resources that we can email out afterwards? I would love to add some things to that as well.
Yes, we are.
Perfect.
So I put my little list in the chat, and I want to go through them really briefly because I know we're out of time. Scriptslug.com is free PDF downloads of most of the TVs and movies that are popular and that you'll see now. I didn't go to film school. I couldn't afford to. So the way I learned is I read scripts like it was my business. It eventually became my job when I was working at the production company. I love scriptslug.com because you can download the PDFs on your tablet or your phone or whatever, and then I watch the movie ahead of me and I go through the script so I can actually see how it translates. Even today, even though I'm a produced writer, like I'm working on my next horror script, I wasn't sure how to write a scene where I wanted to build a lot of tension. So I brought up Oculus by my mentor, Jeff Howard, on ScriptSlug, and I put it side by side on my screen, and I go, oh, that's how he rose that tension there. Well, okay, great. I'm not going to steal it, right? It's not stealing, but I go, okay, now I have an idea of how I can translate that. So I do love scriptslug.com. It's free. Obviously, Final Draft. Final Draft has all of these resources and videos on their YouTube, especially their Breaking In series that we're doing today. All of those agent and manager and lawyer questions I saw in the QA, I didn't answer them because there's a whole video called like Agent, Managers, and Lawyer. You should go watch that. It's 2 hours with real agent and managers and lawyers that talk to you about how to reach out to them adequately. So go watch all the Breaking In series and Final Draft. Ghetto Film School is Black owned. I love them because they just every day their blog has something new about a technique and screenwriting or producing. Obviously, Script Anatomy. I'm teaching a Script Anatomy course in July. It's going to take you from outline to your first draft, but they have so many courses, and they also have interviews with agents and managers and stuff. And then the Professional Pin is my last one. It's ran by a woman named Shannon. She's a Black woman, and she kind of gives you like one-on-one consultations on your script. Okay, so she's not a film school, but she's really talented and she knows everything about technique writing. So if you want to set up a consultation with her, she's going to give you no BS, straight answers. So those are my current favorite resources outside of like Hollywood here if you're looking for connectivity and networking opportunities.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Forgive me, y'all. You guys had some amazing questions. Can't get to all of them, but there also were a few questions, or at least I saw really quickly, about ageism. Is that a real thing in the writer's room?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a whole new, I mean, we've even changed the name, right? It's like, we don't say, young writers anymore. We say new writers, you know what I mean? Like, because like writing is just about experience, you know what I mean? Who doesn't have more experience than people who are a little bit older and live life a little bit longer, you know what I mean? You can change careers and pop into this, which happens quite often. So yes, ageism is definitely a thing. Even within diversity committees at the Guild, the WGA, they have initiatives to fight ageism alone because it's such a thing as well. So, but no, that's changing. Once again, just like BIPOC issues, ageism is also being fought, and is no longer young writer, is new writer.
And I'd like to say ageism is a thing that exists in our society and as a whole, but when it comes to writing, it doesn't matter. If you're starting at 45 or 25. Our room, everyone was in their 30s to 40s. We had a very mature room, I would say. And that's why I think, and the best experiences come from people who have life experience, right? So if you are a certain age and you're switching careers or you're transitioning, I don't think that should stop you. I think you should obviously be aware ageism is a thing no matter what we do, because this society values young youth for some reason. We've always have. The best thing about screenwriting is that it's your words on the page that actually gets you the work. Like no one has a headshot attached to their screenplay. It's all about your work. So
okay. So I think I'm going to end on this question from Kimberlina, and Kareem is probably going to put some more Hive Mind information for you guys in the chat, because we definitely have some more conversations that I think you all might, find really great and benefit from later today and tomorrow and Thursday. But Kimberlina, hopefully I'm saying your name right, says, I am not a writer. I'm a business affairs executive, and I structure policies for writers' rooms regularly. What are some changes that you think would help rooms run better for both the writers, creative executives, to assist and baby writers moving up into staff and assigned scripts? And what I like about this question is because I know we're very here and talking about the writer's room, but she opened up the scope here with, let's put some responsibility or have some conversation about spaces outside of the writer's room. What are your thoughts?
Woo, you go first, Brandon.
I was like, y'all sure y'all want me to go first?
Yeah.
Got ideas.
This is my big push at the, as a newbie WGA East member, I reached out to Lisa Cullen, who is on the diversity committee. And I sent her a paragraph of why we need to focus on, paragraphs of why we need to focus on building a pathway for support staff from, script coordinator, writer's assistant to active staff writer. For me, like I said, I'm in my 10th year, and I still haven't staffed, even though I've gotten, lucky to have 2 freelance scripts, whereas some people, it takes 2 years, right? Like I had an intern in 2012. The producer found her working at an Apple store, and I showed her the ropes. And within 2 years, she was already staffed. You know what I mean? And that can happen to anyone, right? It all depends on who you're connecting with and et cetera. But like focusing on that pathway, right? What does that pathway look like? And that's going to take policy. That's going to take putting things into place where like maybe it's a program where, you know, on year 2 or season 2 that script coordinator is on the show, that they get bumped up, you know what I mean? Or at least they get credit, you know, for a script. You know, you have to put things into place, both policy, both community driven work. You have to put all these things in the pathway to kind of anchor that pathway down. But that's literally what we're doing now, with at least at the WGA East, as well as the work with Liz Opera with hashtag Pay Up Hollywood and et cetera on the West Coast.
And everything he said about Pathway is perfect. I'm going to add a separate point when we talk about bodies and humans in the writer's room. Even though it was virtual, I am a very blessed, privileged woman to be a single woman with no kids, but I know that is not a reality for all women. And it's unfortunate when we talk about ageism, let's talk about sexism, because there's a lot of women who in this industry who get kicked out because they have children or they're pregnant or they're putting their family first. And that should not be the case, especially in 2021. So if you're demanding for people to come into a space and leave their virtual home, have some childcare for them. You have it in the budget, you can do it. The show has millions of dollars. You can make some space and time for little childcare with them. And also you can provide adequate tools for people to reach out to HR when there are instances that they are being abused in the workplace. We have to stop repeating the cycle, okay? We need actual practices, and everyone needs to understand from day one what those practices are and how they're implemented. I worked in HR, can you tell? And then the best recourse must be swift action. So I'm always thinking about, I do want to have a family one day, and I don't want to have to be that person that has to take a break because I'm choosing to raise a family and live a life, especially for dads too. I'm not leaving dads out here as well, but I also want to have a healthy work environment. And hey, I'm kind of socialist with this. If you had some on-site mental services for your writers, especially in drama rooms where they're talking about a lot of crazy stuff, that wouldn't be so bad either.
So there's work to be done in this space. You know, maybe have a forum, to actually hear from the people about what it is they actually need. You know what I mean? I think that's super important, at least for first steps, right?
Right.
To open up the floor to discuss what the issues are.
But pay them for that, because that's consultation and that's a paid job. Don't free
I love
consult.
this.
Listen,
Whoever that business executive is, please reach out to us. We have an idea. I would love to have this conversation. Reach out to me, please.
Reach out to me with the
I
check.
love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Sade Sellers did not come here to play with anybody today. She does the IG Live series as well with Final Draft and works with them on the regular. So please check her out. Again, Brandon Hines, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. We can't wait to see what the script coordinator, writer's assistant program is going to look like with the Writers Guild of America East. And of course, Sherlyn, I'm always happy to do this with you. To all the attendees, we just want to thank you again. This is this is the first event as part of our Unseen Insight Summit to commemorate our 1-year anniversary. There's more events coming up today alone, tomorrow and the next day. When it comes to the Hive Mind Unified on a regular basis, you can check out our office hours. Sade is not going nowhere anytime soon. This month, she has given us time, giving you time. So if you go to the hivemindunified.org right now, go to the office hours page, you should see her picture, click, and you can schedule with her. Please do not waste her time. Come correct, come ready, come with your questions, but do not pitch her anything. That's not her job here. She wants to make sure though that you do feel equipped and confident as you approach the writer's room and go along in your writer career journey. But she's willing to offer time. We also have other writers on there. Stacey Greenberger, shout out to her, is a children's writer. And so she also can offer insight for people who are interested in that genre. Me, myself, and Sherlyn are also there on office hours if you want to reach out to us, if you have questions about your journey in any way. We also have our resources page there, which will list, we'll get the list from Sade and Brandon as well. So you can check back there maybe by tomorrow and you'll see the different things that they listed in case that you missed it. Check out our IG Live series, the Resource Roundup, where we talk about everything from the first time you get a job to your training to the different worlds of the entertainment industry, just so that you can have insight and exposure. This is why we do this. Again, writers, it's not easy. Be encouraged. Be yourself. Like Michael Davis said, claim your glory. I am going to get a shirt or something like that with that name on it because that's just amazing. But we hope to see you next time. Please, though, keep in touch. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for coming.